Unit 4A, Lesson 2. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at surveys, the different types of surveys we can conduct, as well as ways to look at surveys to determine whether or not they are biased towards one side or the other. First, we're going to discuss some different methods we can use to sample our surveys, because when you're conducting a survey, most times it's not going to be logical to be able to survey everybody that is a part of your population, so you're going to take a sample of that population. First one is a simple random sampling. The second one we will talk about is a stratified sampling, and then a cluster sampling. The first one we're going to discuss is a simple random sampling. In a simple random sampling, each object in the population has an equal chance of being chosen. Easy way to think about this is drawing names out of a hat. So suppose in our school we wanted to conduct a survey of the students K through 12. We don't want to analyze every student's survey. We just want a portion of them to save time. So we put each student's name on a piece of paper of equal size, throw all the names in a container, and then we randomly select 30 of those. Okay, this is a simple random sampling because each student has an equal chance of being chosen for this survey. One thing to remember with simple random sampling is that conducting a survey so that each object has an equal chance of being chosen is not as simple as it would seem. Okay, imagine there's a new law that's being voted on, so to get an idea of percentages on where people stand, they conduct a phone survey. So they go to the phone book, select random people in the phone book, and call them to see where they stand on this issue. This is not a simple random sampling because not every registered voter is going to be listed in the phone book. So not every registered voter has an equal chance or opportunity of being selected for this survey. So right there with that simple example, you can see that conducting this type of survey so that everyone has an equal opportunity or chance of being chosen is going to be pretty difficult. Next, we're going to discuss stratified and cluster sampling. We're going to discuss these together because they have some similarities. A stratified random sample is a population sample that divides the population into groups called strata. Then random samples can be selected from each stratum. An example of when stratified sampling would be used is when trying to accurately represent the percentages of a population based on race. So imagine you're conducting a survey over a certain region. You know the percent of African American, Asian, and Caucasian, and so on. You know the percentages of all those different races. You're going to align your survey to match those percentages. So down below we have these different groups called strata. These are going to represent the different races. So you have your African American, you have your Caucasian, you have your Asian. All of those different races are grouped together, and then you're going to select from those the correct percentage based on your population. So imagine we have a survey over a certain region. We know the Asian population accounts for 20% of that overall population. So now when we conduct our survey, we want to make sure that 20% of the population of our survey is Asian. So for a simple example, say we conduct a survey of 100 people. In that survey, we're going to want to select 20 of those people to be Asian. We want that percentage to align with the percentage of that whole population for that region. Now we're going to discuss cluster sampling. A cluster sample divides a population into smaller groups called clusters. Then random clusters are selected to model the population. Cluster sampling would be used if you're trying to be more cost effective or time efficient with your survey. So down below you can see we have our different groups called clusters. Within each cluster we have a mix of the whole population. Okay, and then once we have these different clusters that are formed, we're randomly just selecting one or two of those clusters to represent the whole population. So it's not based on a percentage of race or anything like that. We're just intermixing, organizing all this whole population into smaller groups, and then randomly selecting some of those groups. To end this lesson, we're going to discuss some things to consider with sample surveys relating to biases of surveys. So what are some factors to consider when trying to determine if a survey may be biased or misleading? The first thing you should look at is the source of the survey. When looking at the source of the survey, you're trying to determine, do they have some agenda that they're trying to accomplish? Lots of times you'll see this with politics when you're looking at the right versus the left. What agenda is that source trying to push? Second thing you should look at is the size of the sample of the survey. If you have a survey that was conducted that has a population of 20 people versus a survey that was conducted that has 20,000, which one is probably going to be more reliable? The third thing you should look at is the phrasing of the questions in the survey. Is the question leading you to one answer versus another based on descriptive words used? The fourth thing is social desirability. Social desirability is referring to people that tend to give a false answer based on social norms. So an example of that would be, suppose a survey is conducted on 16 and 17-year-old students, trying to determine what percentage of them have smoked cigarettes or currently smoke cigarettes. That is not going to necessarily be reliable, because if you think about how many 16 and 17-year-olds are going to feel ashamed or feel wrong, they're going to sometimes lie in their response because they feel bad. They don't want to admit that they smoke or that they have smoked, knowing that the legal age is 18, so they're going to give a false response to that survey. The fifth thing on the list is acquiescence bias, and this is simply people wanting to be agreeable, not wanting to contradict something on the survey, or it could just be people skimming the survey. Imagine you had a survey that ended up being 20 questions. Once you get 6 to 7 questions in, you're getting sick and tired of the survey. You just want to be done and move on. So the last 13 questions, you just quickly go through and don't give an honest response or effort to that question. So are they really going to gauge an honest assessment of the population from that survey, knowing that some of the people are just skimming through it? In this lesson, we went through a lot of vocabulary. Make sure you understand the 3 different types of sampling surveys we went through, as well as the 5 areas you need to be concerned with when trying to determine whether a survey may be biased.